Hey guys, what's going on? It's Jordan here. Welcome back to the channel. Thank you for stopping by. So obviously you have clicked on this video for a reason. So we're going to go ahead and talk about two lenses, one of which I just recently picked up not too long ago, and a lens that I have used for a little over a year now. So let's dive into this. This is kind of going to be like a one lens versus the other lens type of deal. So let's go ahead and get into it. Now, first and foremost, the Canon EF75 to 300 millimeter lens you basically get for free when you purchase a camera bundle. I got mine when I got my Canon EOS Rebel T7. It comes with the 18 to 55 and the 70 to 300 kit lens, 75 to 300 kit lens. I've used this for well over a year now. I just recently stepped up and purchased this Tamron 70 to 210 EF lens, so I adapted this to my Canon EOS RP. I have used it on my T7 and my Rebel SL3 as well. Still works perfectly with both of those systems. So let me go ahead and jump into this. I'm kind of going to make this like which one should you choose, like let's say if you didn't have either one of these and you're looking to step up and just kind of like add a zoom lens to your kit type of thing. I'm going to hold these and I'm going to tell you guys about them. So this kit lens right here, if you didn't have it, you could buy it new from Canon's website. It is brand new for $199. Now, personally, I don't think that I would buy this brand new. I have seen these on the Facebook Marketplace. I'm sure you could probably find them on eBay for pretty cheap. Facebook Marketplace, roughly about $70 to $100. There are some people that try to sell these for way more than they're worth. Look for the cheaper ones, but I would say that this is probably worth about $70 to $100. I had thought about buying a second one used from somebody local just to have an extra zoom lens. Not necessarily that I would have needed a second zoom lens for anything really, but just in case maybe I dropped this one or something broke, or if I was doing like videography and I needed to have this on a tripod filming something and I wanted to have another camera on an opposite side getting a different perspective or angle. Maybe having a backup one of these on just another camera would have been a pretty good deal. So just something to consider. Now, this brand new right now, currently in March of 2021 on bhphoto.com. I'm sure you probably, if you went on Adorama or maybe Tamron's website. I don't know if Tamron sells these off their website like Canon does, but I'm going to say I don't recommend people buy things off of Amazon. I quit shopping on Amazon a while ago. It's up to you. I just took a personal thing to Amazon. So that's just me. Anyways, you probably also could find these on Amazon for about the same price. You can maybe find them with the tripod collar. I know Tamron sells the tripod collar for these separately. They're like $130, which I kind of hate, but it is what it is. I have seen these used on eBay for around $450 to $500. I think the last time when I checked, I saw one, it was like $470, and it still had like a day or two left on it, but just something to keep in mind. So this lens right here is about 7.25 inches long. It is roughly 3 inches in diameter, so from one side to the other, it's about 3 inches. It's hefty, and with the lens hood on it as well, it is roughly about 9.5 inches long. So let's just say if you're trying to kind of like go on a walk somewhere and you had the lens hood and everything on this, I mean, obviously you can tell like that's a big ass lens, and people are probably going to be a little bit sketched out if you're walking around with the lens hood and everything on this thing. The nice thing with this, and I will say this much, is it's a little more compact. So this is about 5 or so inches compact at 75. Now, if you're going to zoom out, I mean, obviously it's going to be a little bit longer. If you had a lens hood on this too, same thing. You would obviously notice it as being a larger lens. Canon has perfected the art of making lenses compact and good. This one isn't really necessarily the best lens, but I will say for the amount of time that I've used this, it comes in clutch a lot of times, especially when you're doing like astrophotography, shooting wildlife, even doing like car auto photography and stuff. Like, I mean, it's a clutch lens, and like I said, most everybody gets it for free. You probably already have one if you're watching this, or if you're just more interested in the Tamron lens, but it's still a good lens. Now, weight factor wise, this is a 1 pound and 2 ounces. So with the lens cap and the rear cap off, that's a dusty looking lens anyways. So a pound and 2 ounces, not necessarily that heavy. It's got a little bit of weight to it. I mean, it's not like it's the 18 to 55 kit lens or the 50 millimeter, but I mean, it's a little hefty. This thing right here is damn near 2 pounds. So I mean, when it's on a camera, you feel it. I mean, you really feel the weight of this. So just keep that in mind if you were looking at upgrading from a cheaper lens, or if you wanted to add a 70 to 200 lens to your kit. This is 1 pound and 15 ounces, and that's without the lens cap, the rear cap, or the lens hood on it. So that's 1 pound and 15 ounces. Now, when you add the lens hood to it, obviously you won't be shooting with the lens cap or the rear lens cap, but I mean, that's 2 pounds of lens. So that's why this offered with image stabilization. So you get image stabilization with this lens plus autofocus. I will say that for me specifically, when I purchased this lens, I did have to purchase the Tamron tap-in console with this as well. So I'm going to have to figure out how to focus this, because I do feel that this is missing focus on autofocus. So I think this lens just needs to be adjusted a little bit. But you get autofocus and you get image stabilization, or VC, which I believe is vibration control on this lens. This lens, you get autofocus and that's it. Now, when you're at 300 millimeters on this lens, you definitely notice the shake, especially in your hands. So just a pro tip, if you're shooting with this lens, at least a fast shutter speed of 2/50th or faster than that. So anywhere between 2/50th and 1/4000th of a second, depending on how fast your shutter speed goes. But I have used this lens for drifting photography. It is very hard to use this lens when you're panning a shot, especially without having image stabilization. And I will say that for the most part, most of the images that I got doing the drifting photography came out pretty good, but I had a lot of throwaways. I mean, I've only done drifting photography one time, but I had roughly about 1,100 or so images, and I think in total I threw like almost half of them, if not a little bit more than that, away. And some of the other images that I still had were still kind of shaky, but they were at least sharp enough that I could post with. But something to keep in mind. $600 you get image stabilization. That's the cheapest zoom lens that I found. I know Canon has another one of these. It's basically the same lens, but it's like $400, and you get image stabilization and autofocus, but the apertures are the same. So it's a 4 to 5.6, but take it as it is. I mean, 5.6 really isn't that bad. It's a half stop of light pretty much from 4 to 5.6. So going back to that, so aperture wise, you have a prime aperture of f4 from 70 to 210. You have an f4 to an f5.6 through all of the zoom ranges between 70 to 300. So 75 is f4, I believe 135 is f5, and then I believe once it gets into 210-ish or 250-ish range, it goes to 5.6. So there's an aperture range for each one of those. So f4 goes from 75 to like 150, 135, somewhere around there, and then it switches over to f5, and then from that it goes, I think, like 210 or 225 to 300 is f5.6. So just keep that in mind. I mean, I've shot plenty of images, and I will say between the camera, between this at an f5 at 210 millimeters and this at an f4 at 210 millimeters, there really isn't a huge difference in bokeh in the background. I will tell you that much right now. So the only time you're ever really gonna notice a true difference is if you have a 70 to 200 or a 70 to 300 that's an f2.8. That's probably the only time you're really ever going to know or see the difference in bokeh. F4 still produces a nice bokeh. Even this, if you're, depending on what focal length you're at, you can still get some pretty nice bokeh out of it. Now, 5.6 compared to f4, you're going to notice a little bit softer, like more of a soft background with this lens. But to be honest, if you're just getting started and you have this lens, or if you're looking to buy like a used one of these, don't be afraid to use it. It still works. You'll still get the results you're looking for until you have enough money to save up to get a better lens. Now, the clear winner for this is going to be this lens right here. So 75 to 300 millimeters, 70 to 210. Now, is that a lot of a difference? Yes. If you're looking at a difference of 90 millimeters of focal length from this lens to this lens, you're really going to notice it, especially just because you have a little bit more reach. Now, at the shorter end, you have 70 and 75. So 70 to 75, still a little noticeable, but it's not a huge step. But I mean, basically, once you go from 210 to 300, you kind of notice and you kind of see that difference in the focal length, the ranges. So I will say that for this, and the one reason why I kind of hate that I eventually probably will either stop using this lens, or I will basically wind up selling it or giving it to somebody that needs it, is the fact that it is a 300 millimeter. If this had image stabilization, even with as terrible as the aperture range is and as bad as the chromatic aberration gets on this sometimes, I will say that I will probably miss that 70 to 300, and that's a fact. So obviously these are both Canon EF mount lenses, so they work with all crop sensor cameras and they work with all full frame Canon cameras. You can obviously adapt these to Canon mirrorless full frame cameras like my EOS RP. I've basically adapted these to that camera and they work flawlessly. Autofocus works great. I haven't seen any issues, so that's a plus. Now, the nice thing with this lens specifically is it's a 58 millimeter thread on the front. So I have been purchasing all of my filters for all of my lenses at 58 millimeters. So what I'm using right now on this camera is the Moment Cinebloom filter. Both of my ND filters, my polarizing filters, they're all 58 millimeters. So I could easily adapt them to this lens, my 18 to 55, my 50 millimeter f1.4 has a 58 millimeter thread. Obviously my two Rokinons, I can't adapt any lenses filters to those. And my Laowa lens is a 52, I believe. So I would actually have to, the way that the Laowa lens is designed, I have to actually get a filter for that lens specifically. But anyways, that was the nice thing with this, is all of the lenses that I had all could take 58 millimeter threads, ND filters, polarizing filters, any type of filter that I wanted. This bad boy right here is 67 millimeters, so I now have to go and I now have to purchase another ND filter for this, a polarizing filter for it, possibly another moment Cinebloom filter. I do enjoy that filter, by the way. If you guys haven't watched that review, you should. I think it is a filter that most everybody would enjoy to have, especially if you're like a filmmaker or if you enjoy doing a lot of like portrait photography. I think that lens filter will be pretty good for you. So basically, I have to go and I have to buy 67mm filters for all of this lens specifically now, which kind of sucks. I didn't ever want to have to go and buy more filters just because, like, I don't necessarily use ND filters that often. When I do, they're mostly just for doing like videography. I probably should start doing more long exposures during the day or like at sunset, but I don't. So another thing too, with this lens specifically, even with, well, I should say specifically on my Canon EOS RP, I can do like lens chromatic aberration and all that stuff, but I took all of the in-camera lens corrections and stuff off, and this lens, while it's still good, even at 200mm, so I think like 210 was like a 5 or a 5.6, you get a lot of fringing, like chromatic aberration and fringing on very bright highlights, even if you shoot underexposed like I do. I shoot at least half a stop to a full stop underexposed when I do photography, and this lens still has a lot of just purple fringing on really highlighted areas. So that is pretty much it. It's like a side-by-side comparison. So if you guys found this video useful at all, give it a thumbs up. Basically, I wanted to make this video because if you didn't have a zoom lens, should you dump $600 into the Tamron or maybe like an equivalent Canon lens? Like, I know that the Canon L series 70-200 f4 without image stabilization's $600. Do you need image stabilization? For most photography, no. I have gotten away with just using a faster shutter speed on the Canon 75-300 kit lens. Like I said, I used it doing drift photography, and drift photography is kind of hard. I had a friend show me how to do it the first time that I ever did it. I have to get back out there and do more of it. It's just kind of a pain. It's a pretty far drive for me, but I will say, using that lens, you can still use it and you can still get good results with it. It just takes a lot of practice. So just keep that in mind. Now, if you already own that lens and you don't need to upgrade for any specific reason, do you really need to go and drop the money on a new zoom lens? Probably not. You probably don't need to. If you're getting more into professional work, like let's say you're a portrait photographer or somebody that is doing photography more and getting more gigs and stuff like that, and you've been using like a cheaper lens and you just want to upgrade just to get better image quality, then I think the Tamron should do you pretty well. Like I said, you can find them used on eBay. Maybe check like local Facebook marketplaces and stuff to see if maybe somebody is selling one. Like I said, I bought my new with the Tamron tap-in console, so I think I paid maybe $650 to $670, somewhere around there, but it was worth it. I will say that much. One thing I hate about it is just it's big and it's heavy. Because I came from this lens specifically, and it's small, it's pretty light. I mean, it's a pound, maybe a little over a pound, and small, light, and compact. Like, I mean, basically like that. I can hold this lens between two fingers, no problem. This lens, on the other hand, I could basically take this off of my lens and beat the crap out of somebody that was trying to rob me with it, and I think that this lens would still be okay. That's how big this lens is. I mean, literally just, you know, twist it off and then just start beating the guy with it if I have to. That's how big and heavy this lens is. But it is a sharp lens. It's got some sharp glass, I will say that much. Yeah, so that's it. That's it, guys. If you guys like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, also give it a thumbs up. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit all the buttons, and I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.